Hello, hello. Welcome to our impromptu Wednesday live stream. You can probably hear from my voice that I'm a little bit sick, getting over a cold. So bear with me. I took a Dayquil, but I had a very strong message come through, and I've got my notes here, and I wanted to try and get this out. Hello, hello. It's nice to see you guys midweek. So, if you are new to my channel, which you're probably not, but just to recap things, like the way that we kind of do things around here is obviously I'm a tarot reader and we dip into the tarot, we dip into the energies. And I'm really big in my own life and in the way that I try to understand life in general, not to just pay attention to what's on the surface of things, but to try to get at what I call the undercurrent. What is actually causing the things to move on the surface? And I feel like a lot of you align with me in that, and that's why we come together as a community, because that's where the power is, that's where the juice is. I know me in my own life, that has led me down a path of shadow work, and a lot of you it's the same, and tarot has been a big part of helping me to process my own psychology and life itself, and understanding the who, what, when, where, why, and how of like these surface level events. And I always like to compare it to like plate tectonics, if you're familiar with like that concept in school, where the continents on our planet kind of like shift around, but what causes them to shift around? Well, it's the plates, the tectonic plates that are underneath the surface, and they're shaped differently, and there's different shelves, and there's ways that they bump up against each other and things. And that's really what I'm interested in. And I feel like that's where this message is really coming through, at least like that's the intention of it. Okay. Now, this one took me for a bit of a loop, so I'm going to try to like piece together exactly the way that it was coming through. But I was listening to this woman talk about her life and talk about an experience that she had, and she mentioned Leviathan. I don't know if you've heard Leviathan. A lot of you probably have, because it actually correlates to a lot of different things, but it sent me on this whole like rabbit hole journey. And as I was looking into it and kind of reacquainting myself with that concept, because I knew I'd heard it before, but I wasn't as familiar with it as I wanted to be. So things just started clicking in. It was like, oh, aha, boom, 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 boom. And that's kind of the journey that I feel called to share with you, like my mental journey and sort of piecing certain things together. And I feel like that's what we're doing, is we're trying to kind of like puzzle piece things together. Now, ironically, we say that a lot, like, okay, we're trying to put the pieces together. We're trying to get this kind of clear picture. And obviously, we live very short lifespans as human beings, like compared to a zodiacal age, for instance, that's like 2,100 and like 26 years long, or however long it is, or a geologic age. Living 80 to 100 years is just a blip in time. So we can't really understand the fullness and the totality of life. But here we have incarnated at the end of Pisces, which is ruled over by Neptune, and things can get a little hazy, things can be a little bit confusing. And so I feel like during our time here, a lot of us had to combat this kind of spirit of confusion, I will say, this like haze where it's hard to actually see through, like, is this what I think it is, or why am I necessarily having this reaction? And I feel like we're going through that on a collective level, like this kind of big reckoning. But I think there's things happening on the collective, and there's things happening on the personal for a lot of people, and a lot of that is overlapping and happening kind of at the same time, where we're kind of having this realization that, wait a second, the way that I thought things were, the way that I thought things were situated is not exactly the way things are, and the way things are situated. And I think that's definitely a hallmark of the age of Pisces, which a lot of you know that we're like sitting on that age of Pisces, and we're coming up into the age of Aquarius. And so part of that reckoning, which is a very Plutonian word, part of that apocalypse, part of that uncovering, is uncovering the layers of confusion. So that's what brings me back to Leviathan. Now, I've got these words here. And as I started wrestling with this concept, and wrestling is such an apt metaphor, because Leviathan in the Bible, because Leviathan is mentioned several times in the Bible, but then it's kind of taken on this almost like a nomenclature in modern society. It's like this modern, almost like mythical concept of whenever people say like, oh, we got to feed the beast, or, rage against the machine. It's like the beast and the machine that people are talking about. They often refer to colloquially like as Leviathan. It is this kind of monster, this like conglomerate monster that is forever feeding on more and more like citizens and souls. So it's kind of like this personification of society itself, and the governments and the systems, and all of the little nuts and bolts and nooks and crannies that like it requires to kind of run this thing called society, that we have kind of given a life of its own, right? And it needs to feed on more and more. If you're familiar with like, I can't remember the exact law, Alex might know it, but you know how in the United States we have this crazy law that kind of recognizes corporations as people, like they have like legal rights and stuff, like as if they were people. It's kind of like that, like the corporation, or like it's seen as like its own kind of entity in and of itself, but it's just like sucking more and more things into it. So that's kind of like this kind of concept of Leviathan. But in the Bible, it's actually depicted as this sea dragon kind of thing that comes up from the depths, and it is kind of this like anti-Christ, anti-humanity, anti-love kind of force that is associated with confusion and envy. And that's where I'm getting this like whole kind of concept of like the dance between confusion and envy. And I feel like that's been a major theme of my own life. Like if I look back, I didn't always recognize those two energies, confusion and envy, as being in any way connected to each other. But also I didn't recognize them for what they actually were. And then I started to have all these kind of flashbacks, which oftentimes I do. And I feel like this is a weird gift of my OCD, because like I would have to go over and over certain readings. I didn't have to. My brain told me that I had to, and I believed it. So sometimes I would go over and over certain readings, and I would talk my throat dry, and like bloody, trying to get the reading out in just the way that I thought was like just perfect enough. Like it got across what I needed to, and I wasn't confusing. And I was always combating confusion. I was always wrestling. Oh, this is too confusing, or I don't want to trigger anybody over. It's that wrestling of that like kind of confusion. But it stuck certain concepts in my mind. It stuck certain things in my brain. So I started going back, and I was like kind of connecting the dots with certain key phrases that I've said over the course of reading the cards for you. And I wrote down some of them. One is I remember channeling a lot and often. There's this Kelly Clarkson song. I think it's called Catch My Breath. I think that's the one. I'm not entirely sure, but it's she mentions this concept of shadow boxing the other half, and this like Leviathan kind of creature, this energy, the spirit of confusion that can like overtake somebody, and overtake our world. It has you kind of feeling like you're shadow boxing the other half. You know that you're being kind of like attacked, but you don't know like where it's coming from, or how to protect yourself, or like where to kind of like strike. You just kind of just like and you're trying to like put it together, but it's like that shadow boxing the other half. And in that song she says, I've spent most of my life learning how to react. And I think a lot of us sort of feel that way. The other one is the Alice in Wonderland metaphors of like following the right rabbit, like down the rabbit hole. And then it feels like you're in this entire dream landscape where there's a crazy party over there, and a drink me that makes you big, and a eat me that makes you small. And then there's a queen beheading people, and like, it's a lot, but it's that kind of dream like esque kind of thing. The other one that has stuck out to me is Rumpelstiltskin. And my mom used to tell me that story as a kid, Rumpelstiltskin. And I've told that story a couple of times as it's come through in the readings. And just briefly, Rumpelstiltskin is a story of this like peasant girl, and the prince or the king comes like rolling through town, and her demented father says, "Oh, my daughter can spin hay into gold." And she knows full well she can't. And so the king is like, "Well, I'll marry her. Let's just put her in my basement, and she can just make all the gold that she can, And so she's stuck there in that basement thinking, oh, they're going to kill me when they find out that I can't actually do this. And that's when Rumpelstiltskin shows up. And, he makes her promise like her firstborn and, whatever, but he does all the magics or whatever. But she needed to guess his name. And that's where I feel like this Leviathan, I'm getting goosebumps, Leviathan, like say it, it's Leviathan. And so I feel like this is meant to be such an empowering message, and like the key of like, this is why it's been so confusing. This is why it's been so hazy, is because you've been wrestling the spirit of Leviathan, and it's come up like it can work through people. It's kind of like demonic, where it overtakes a person. And I kind of am flashing to that voodoo concept of they say like you ride spirits, or spirits like ride you. It's like the horse, kind of thing. Like that's what it is. And so it's about becoming strong enough in yourself to kind of banish or rid. What's the term for it? Like the righteous one. Exercise like those demons, and to like banish it out of your world. So it's this like Leviathan thing. The other thing is it's like there's a harnessing energy component to this, that it likes the confusion, it likes the harm, it likes feeding off of people, and it likes weaving this like narrative in this like wave of confusion. But also because the key is to look within the self, which has been a major theme of the readings as well. And when I picked up, I wanted to have at least one deck here, because even though I kind of channeled this message, I just don't like to not have a deck near me. And this Four of Swords was at the bottom. And this is, I just heard Sleeping Beauty. it is like very much asleep, but see all the haze, like you can see like the haze under the moon. The moon itself is like a symbol of, confusion and illusion, but it can also be like luxury. And all the cobwebs here in the background, and her broom, the witch's broom, which is like her tool, right? It's her totem kind of thing. It's like clearing out like the clutters of the mind. It's like doing the actual shadow work here. But actually, talking about the moon here for just a second, for just a brief second, this called to mind for me Jordan Maxwell's work. I don't know if you've heard of him. I don't know what you would call him. He's a linguist. I think that's what you call him. He's like self-studied, but he really takes an interest in the Hebrew Bible, not the Hebrew Bible, but the Bible just in general. And he goes very deep into these like single words and like just the concepts that they have. And I'm not asking you to, it's definitely a trip if you want to go down that rabbit hole and just listen to the things and the concepts that he talks about. I don't believe everything any human being alive says in its totality. I just want to throw that out there. That's more Leviathan, because I just feel like once you recognize that we're all human and we're all fallible and we're all trying to piece things together and we're all doing the best that we can and we're all trying to walk each other home, like Ram Dass says. So there's certain pieces of the truth that I've lived and that I know and that I can say, and there's certain ones that you can say. And once you realize that we're just imperfect people that are all kind of trying to say the things that we know, and sometimes, then I feel like life gets a whole lot more clear. So just know that, like, going into his work. But he's a very interesting guy to listen to. But one of the most interesting talks that he gives, and he gives it multiple times, you can look him up on YouTube, and he gives the same kind of talk multiple times. He talks about maritime law and actually like the court systems, at least in the US, I'm pretty sure in other countries too. He talks about these specific words and that they actually have this kind of like maritime law sort of feel. You cross the bar. And so it's kind of like the ruling of the sea, like Neptunian law kind of thing, which again, Leviathan kind of like comes up from the sea. And why should we be surprised? Because Earth is known as like that little blue ball, because yeah, we are like land creatures. We live on land. I didn't know if you know that or not, but subscribe to my channel for more gems like this. But we live on land, but it's mostly water that like takes like the energy here in our planet. And so it's kind of like trying to rule over like what's on the land. I don't know. I can't like do his work justice, but if you're interested in that at all, definitely listen to that. But it talks kind of about the ways that we've been tricked into like giving our powers away, and how we are confused into thinking that certain words and certain concepts mean a certain thing, but actually they in practice and in reality they mean another thing. And that's where we get all confused and we get all twisted around. And that's where it can feel like fighting the Leviathan, the water snake, which the water snake, the sea snake, is such an interesting concept for me as well, because it calls to mind Uttara Bhadrapada, which my moon is in Uttara Bhadrapada, but and usually that is a very like beautiful, very auspicious kind of nakshatra, but that's more moon imagery. That's why I was bringing up Jordan Maxwell. Thank you. Let me just finish my thoughts on Jordan Maxwell here, because the other thing that he talks about was that all of humanity and all of religion, like from the beginning of time, it's really, we're talking about the sun and the moon. We're talking about daylight and we're talking about nighttime. I just saw 11:11. So daylight, and we're talking about nighttime. So where a lot of these concepts, especially in the Bible, come from, it's comes from Egypt, overlooking into the Sinai Peninsula, and on the Sinai Peninsula, looking into it from Egypt's side of things, there's mountains. It's like very mountainous, and so they would always watch the moon over the mountains. And so their myths, they said the moon lived in the mountains, moon ruling over illusions and delusions, right? But it was it's bar life, and it's that Neptunian kind of like haze. So there was people that followed the moon, and the moon is called sin or sign or something like that. To sin means to error, because you're not seeing things clearly. You're not seeing things in the light of day. But where the sun, Ra, the sun god, comes up and shows you the power, shows you the truth, and you're safer in the daylight. The wolves aren't going to come try to eat you at night, or the highway robbers aren't going to steal your cart full of grain. I don't know. It's those kind of ancient sort of dances. And I feel like that's that like Leviathan sort of concept. So it's, and it can have power over you, that moon energy. Sin means to error. So sometimes I think that we have these like big concepts, with things, but it really, when we bring it back to the basics, like the baseline concepts of what these things mean, to sin means to error. Well, I ask spirit, like, what's the way out of this? Well, the moon in Vedic astrology is the mind. So it's getting to know the total mind, which is another theme that we bring up quite a lot, and it's illuminating that. And to me, this is a waxing moon instead of a waning moon, and it's actually shedding light here, and it's doing this the inner work, and it's clearing out the clutter, it's clearing out the cobwebs, because at least your eye is on like the right pentacle, because it likes to give you options where there are no options, right? And that to me is like Leviathan, like kind of jumping on that to startle things. So I feel like that has been the invisible third party for most of your life in a lot of different things. So it's this dance of confusion and envy. And the other thing that came through very strong for me is I heard envy is another way of saying power. Because when you court envy, and you should not court envy, and I do think there's a masculine energy who has done this, who has courted envy, and will live to regret it, I just heard. But you do not court envy, because the same thing as courting envy, wanting people to envy you, is it's another way of saying power. I also heard fear, wanting people to fear you. That's another, I'm trying to have power, and power is the opposite of love. Fear is the opposite of love. Envy, it's the opposite of love, but it's a way to try to bolster ourselves. And then it leads to this cyclical back and forth, this dance between envy and confusion. And I'm hearing like, oh, I didn't even realize that was you under there. Like I'm seeing you pull like the faces off of like, well, I was confused, but I didn't realize that it was because somebody was either envious of you, and so you didn't understand why they were behaving a certain way, or you were fueled by envy in certain ways, and so it was confusing somebody else, So they were giving me this image of like a washing machine, where and it is this sea snake, because it's like, this part of the snake's over here and it's blocking your eyes over here, but then the light can kind of get through over here, and it's just, the rest of it's just all water. And, it's kind of this confusing washing machine. And part of it is there's a part of this that plays on a personal level, so you can be personally envious of like another person, but this could also be, some parts of this could be occurring on like a societal level or a collective level, because I'm going to start channeling this reading down into a specific dance and a specific circumstance that I feel like has gone on here between you and masculine energy or feminine energy. If you allow me, if you can stick with my Dayquil ramblings here, but like the societal aspect of that is very much like, I want to say keeping up with the Kardashians, because we say keeping up with the Joneses, but I feel like the modern version of that is, keeping up with the Kardashians. So it's being jealous of like what your neighbor has, or thinking that you're less than if you don't have like, I don't know what society says that we all should have in order to be deemed worthy. So we go about trying to court envy. And so I feel like that is what's kind of going on here. Like things are not as they seem. I feel like that's what I'm hearing, like the tarot, your path and your journey with the tarot is you're tapping into energy, and energy isn't always the truth is what I'm hearing. Energy isn't always the truth. There's an aspect of it that is truth. It's like, well, this is what I'm fearing, or this is what I'm feeling. And so there's an element of truth, but you have to know kind of where to put it in order to have it be the ultimate truth, like with the capital T. And that's part of like what we're here to be doing as beings. But this kind of earmarks is what I'm hearing, like your journey with the tarot is you have to understand what it is and what it isn't. So yes, you're picking up on these snapshots of maybe like your energy or your fears, or sometimes it is meant to give you like a glimpse of the truth. But this is like spirit's kind of throwing the ball back to you, and it's helping you do the sifter, right? Like, and I'll bring that back around like towards the end. That's kind of where I want to head to this. But I feel like if you're receiving this message, I feel like you're sitting on the precipice, or you've already kind of like discovered like, wait. I'm realizing that things are not as they seem, or things are not as I thought they were. And again, this feels like this could honestly be anything. This feels huge to me. And it feels like there's some kind of there's always a dog in the fight with envy is what I'm hearing. There's always a personal dog in the fight, whether it is something on a collective level. So you could be relating to, I don't know, this could literally be anything. This could be as big as like what you think life is and how you think life functions overall and what the purpose of life is. And you're starting to realize, wait a second, it doesn't actually work this way or something, This could be on a secular level to do with your child's school, or it could be anything, right? But this also has like something kind of personal in it, but there's always an element of the personal in it is what I'm hearing. So that's where I want to get into like this actual scenario that I was picking up on, because as I was channeling this message, I pulled a few cards, and the cards that came out, okay, so because I feel like this relates to what I want to describe as a masculine energy and a feminine energy. Now, as per usual, you can flip these up, but I feel like it's the experience of one person and the experience of another person. And this is that dance that I want to really try to highlight here, the dance between confusion and envy, and what's been going on between like these two people and what's been going on inside of these people, that I feel like I'm hearing this is what will lead you back to compassion and to understanding like like the truth and understanding compassion in it. So I want to use the words masculine and feminine, and keep in mind masculine and feminine are energies. I haven't said that in a while, but it's different than just male or female. So it's like this kind of more masculine energy, this more feminine energy. Take that however it's resonating here with you. But the masculine I saw embodied as the Magician card, which is major arcana, and it has that like bright yellow kind of background. And the feminine I saw as embodied as the Four of Wands. Again, bright yellow background. So I feel like this has to do with confidence. It has to do with like the solar plexus chakra. There's a lot of people that feel like that's where the soul lives. I don't know where the soul lives. I've heard things like, it's in your third eye, or it's in your heart, or I have heard though that it is in your solar plexus chakra. But to me, it's that bright sun energy that was standing out to me of the solar plexus. It's feeling confident in where you are. Well, that doesn't always mean having the truth about what's going on in a situation. So how can you find that truth? That's what this is. That's the ultimate thing. That's what this is trying to push you towards, is how do you steer even when you're confused? And my husband is like very much a naturalist, and he really likes nature. And he took several courses actually, like in permaculture. But one of the concepts that he's introduced me to is, he said, in permaculture, which is a way that you kind of deal with the natural world. It's very natural, and it's in alignment with like the natural cycles and things. You try not to disturb things too much. You try to understand the way that nature kind of naturally functions. And one tenet that he says is, when in doubt, do nothing. When in doubt, do nothing. And I feel like we've all lived this in our own lives, where we were doubtful, but you're so anxious and you're so nervous, or like you're so hyped up on emotion that you feel like you need to do something in order to kind of remove the pot from the fire, so that it doesn't boil over. But that's a lot of times that's frying pan into fire. That's how we frying pan into the fire. That's how we get ourselves into like more trouble. So if you can, and I feel like that's kind of the point of this, is to find your center. And that's why the Hermit card always comes out. This is about going within. This is about sitting calmly in the chaos. And that's why I call myself the chaos witch. And before I get too much into like describing these two energies, I do want to share this little snippet of like this overlap of like the chaos witch for me, and this concept of Leviathan that deals with like confusion and chaos and envy, because I don't think it's an accident that I call myself the chaos witch. But one of the things that my guides like to do with me is they do the end first with me, because there's no way that I could possibly know that that's like where something's leading up to. But then when it all falls into alignment, I know that I'm tapped into something real. And that's just the way that they kind of get around my mind with me. And I've just picked up on that pattern, and it means so much to me, like whenever that happens. Well, when I was a little girl, I was like very young. I was in elementary school, and my great grandmother passed away. And that was the first experience that I ever had with death, like actual somebody that I knew having died. And it did something to me. It was almost like flipping a switch. And I don't even know why, because I wasn't even that close with her. And to be honest, she was not exactly the most pleasant of women. Like every time my sister and I would go over there, like with my dad, she would always have something negative to say, like, well, why isn't their hair curly like mine? Or why aren't they this way? Or why aren't they that way? And I was like, you're just like not very nice. So I don't know why it affected me so much, because I didn't feel like I had, some kind of strong connection to her or anything. But when she died, it felt to me like a switch had just flipped. And I started crying like a lot, and I was journaling a lot. And when I went to bed that night and I was like in the pitch black darkness of my room, I remember kind of just like calling out into like the void. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. Bring it on. And I didn't know, like, I always think about that moment, because even in that moment, as I was like saying it, it just like bubbled up out of me from like nowhere. And I didn't know where it came from, and I didn't know who I was talking to, and I didn't know why I was doing it. But there was this part of me that kind of did know that I meant to say what I said, and I was saying it to who I was fucking saying it to, like it was like that. It was kind of like I knew I was fair game. And I think it was Leviathan. I think I was talking to Leviathan. I think I always knew that Leviathan was going to come for me, because I think he comes for all of us in the age of Pisces. And to me, it was just like, okay, like this is going to start to build up to something now, and I kind of just knew, and I was like, bring it the fuck on. Like, I'm ready. And I was not ready. And I cry, I weep, but I'm not giving up, but it was crazy to me. And then fast forward to the Chaos Witch, where, I had just been introduced to the concept of, witch, in a way that I could relate to. Because, I grew up Christian, and they don't think the nicest things, and they don't say the nicest things about witches. because Leviathan confused everybody and likes to get people fighting people that they shouldn't be fighting so that the real bad guys can feed off of whatever they want to feed off of, right? Like that's just the name of the game. Leviathan likes to get soulmates fighting soulmates, likes to get friends fighting friends. And then you're just kind of looking at each other like, but who is, what's happening? You know? That's that like Leviathan energy. So I remember like first getting introduced to the concept of witchiness and like actually looking into it with an open mind and realizing that it was just one of our feminine archetypes that had been taken away from us, because I realized like how actually cute it is. Like, that women call themselves like, there's all kind of witches, you know, it's kitchen witchin', it's hedge witch, divination witch, you know, the medicine witches, like the herbal witchcraft, like it's all the things that like a community needs to survive. And it's just a person who is like really, really good at it. And you've got the touch of the magic, that like kind of divine feminine, the sum is greater than the total of its parts magic that just kind of it's a wholeness, it's a gestalt, it's an intelligence that like kind of comes through. And I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. And so I thought to myself, well, what kind of witch am I? And I said, I am a chaos witch. If there's anything that I have like that I've come up against repeatedly in my life, it is chaos. And I'm actually very proud of the way that I've handled myself in the face of it, and very triumphant. And I feel like I've learned and I've mastered how to like kind of sit in the chaos as much as somebody can master it, you know, because it's always going to be a process, and it's always going to be trying to like kind of keep your balance on it. But I feel like that's something that I have a natural knack for, or that I'm kind of coming awake, you know, in the midst of the anesthesia, because I actually do that, you know, but I kind of wake up, you know, in the midst of like the confusion or the chaos. I'm good at that. And it's funny because I knew I had to call myself some kind of witch. I just knew I had to. And I knew I kind of needed to call myself the chaos witch. But honestly, I didn't know why. I didn't know why. But it's because of this like journey with Leviathan. I feel like it's because I've been having to combat chaos and confusion. And that's what we're here to do, like with the tarot and like these particular experiences. So I'm hearing, don't focus so much on like the specifics of the experience that you lose sight of like what's going on and what's unfolding for you on a spiritual level, where you are actually, and I'm hearing, and if you can muster it, if you can bear it, be grateful for it, because we are ending the age of Pisces and this won't come around again, you know. I really don't think that you will like enjoy this experience like while it is. You have what you have to learn from now as you're kind of like waking up and coming up out of it. And this reminds me so much of Revelation in the Bible, where you know that the dragon, like Christ comes down to like fight the dragon and to like throw the dragon into the fiery pits of hell, Leviathan, like that kind of energy of confusion. And I want to leave that there. And in case you get bored and want to dip off of this, like that's one thing that I feel like I'm supposed to tell you, is to pray for whoever. You don't have to say Christ, like, you know, the highest powers in all the hours, you know, Shiva, or like, you know, God, like that energy to rid you of this Leviathan energy. Ask God to make things clear for you. Ask God to illuminate where is the envy in this situation, and how is it clouding your judgment? How is it causing confusion? Where's the confusion in this situation, and where is it causing you to envy where maybe you shouldn't envy? And that's where I want to kind of like start to pick this out. So I think that so much about life too, it's about the lens. So zoom in and then zoom out, and then zoom in and then zoom out, because that's going to help you to understand. Like, it's just like a microscope. You zoom in and then you zoom out, and then you zoom in and then you zoom out, because there's something that you can pick up on like with the details when you're looking up close. But if you never back up, then you never put things into context. And so you're just as liable to not have the truth about a situation, but to then you've got arrogance, you know, because you think, I've looked at every little detail on this slide here, and nothing could get past me except for zooming out and seeing the total picture, right? So it's like trying to see things from all angles. Okay, so anyways, I just wanted to throw that little bit in there. Now, getting into like the actual situation that I was seeing, okay, so like I was saying, I saw the masculine as the magician, and which is the first card, and I always see that Roman numeral 1 as like an I. It's a very strong like I am like the creator kind of, you know, an energy. And then I saw that feminine energy as the 4 of Wands. And then the anchor card for both of those energies that they shared in common was the Death card, another major arcana. And that just goes right into our theme here, that scorpionic theme of like the still waters run deep kind of thing, you know, where it's that kind of stagnant, very still water, and it's agitating. So this is a relationship here that's kind of agitating, pulling up those scorpionic and I'm hearing to feed off of it. And it's like the worst fears and your worst illusions. And we've also got the magician here. So on the masculine side here, I feel like this masculine is actually, maybe this is like your masculine side and your feminine side here as well. I don't know, take this however it resonates, but it's like these two distinct energies that I'm getting. So this is like that masculine side of things is a very strong manifester, but that combination, it's very like, it's giving Anurata to me, which Anurata is another energy that comes out a lot on the channel. It is the nakshatra in the middle of Scorpio. The death card is that scorpionic energy, and Scorpio is that house that everybody's afraid of. It's the 8th house of crisis and death and trauma and phobia. It's a very dark house. You can't really see through it. You know, you got to kind of feel your way through it. It can surprise you. You know, it's death, it's taxes, money after marriage. Everybody is afraid of that house. But in Vedic astrology, right in the center of that house is one of the brightest, most beautiful nakshatras, and that is Anurata. And Anurata is the lighthouse on the hill. And it's about finding that lighthouse on the hill energy. And for some of you, it is about embodying that and being that potentially for others. The traumas that you've gone through, the fears that you've had to confront and face in this light. Well, it's nice if you become the lighthouse for that. And you're like, there are rocks over there. That way, nobody has to continue to crash into that. And that's what we do for each other. Like Ramdas said, we are all walking each other home. And that is so much more than just words. It is, I bumped into that rock, don't you do it. You know, it's that kind of thing, right? And Anurata is, its Shakti power is devotion. And devotion is one of, if not the highest vibrational energy that there is. And those of you who are familiar with yoga, bhakti yoga, devotional yoga is the highest form of yoga. Even beyond any of the city powers that there's no city power greater than devotion. And that's what this masculine energy actually has to unlock. But Anurata, those of you who are familiar, is notorious for ABUSIVE relationships, notorious for it. And I don't know with this masculine, it could be a bit of like, you know, two sides of the same coin. I think that he's been in ABUSIVE relationships, and there's some kind of Saturnian energy here. This is like trapped energy. It's like very long-term energy. So this could be with a family member, and it feels chronal to me, with that Saturn energy. So this could be with a mother or a grandmother that has, but also I think this goes to past lives. Like there is just a karmic, and it's like a woman scorned is what I'm getting. It's like a very angry energy, and it's again, this Leviathan, it's latched on, it's feeding, it's whatever. But it's this Leviathan energy, this confusion energy. So it has to feed off of him and isolate him is what I'm getting as well, through confusion and through the getting him to fight his enemies, etc., etc. And that could be poisoning his mind towards keeping up with the Joneses, seeking out envy where he should be seeking out contentment and acceptance and love, right? So I'm seeing this masculine as the magician. I'm seeing him kind of hunched over because like the magician in the magician card, the Rider-Waite deck always looks like a little boy to me, like looks very underdeveloped and kind of small, and he's got these really, really rosy cheeks. So I kind of feel like maybe he's like very embarrassed, and it's like he's got everything that he needs. And so you could have actually come into contact with this masculine as he was on the precipice. There's real precipice energy here with both of you, but especially here like with this masculine where it's like he's ready to confront this, and this could be your masculine side, keep in mind, because it's like he's been manifesting from this polluted well, that scorpionic energy. And this is a masculine who's very talented at that, and I feel like he actually gives rise to some doozy energies, like with this with his mind, overactive imagination. I'm hearing like the mind, just the fears and the phobias and the jealousy and the envy, just like, and it kind of creates this hellscape around him. He's kind of manifesting it. And I think for you, it's like you're kind of manifesting it, but you might not realize that that's where it's kind of coming from, which is why it's important that we do the shadow work and why you understand that you're the magician, because the magician card for me is always a symbol that you have everything you need. You have all the tools on the table to become aware of what's going on, because the magician card is Mercury. It's pattern recognition. So you can recognize the pattern and you can manifest something different, or you can take action, skillful action, to remove yourself from that particular situation. And that's where I'm seeing the magician kind of stand up. And that's where like he's holding his wand to the sky, you know, and actually giving rise to, all of a sudden you see all those beautiful rosebuds and stuff starting to emerge. And this is very much the lotus that's rising up from like the muck and the mire of that scorpionic energy, but it's had to like kind of get things turning here. And I feel like, before we jump over to the feminine side of things, the world card was also like on the bottom of the deck. And so I feel like this feminine energy, which is Four of Wands energy, and I'll talk about what that means to me here in just a second, but this feminine energy, it shows that feminine in the middle of the victory wreath with masculine energies to me, but they're the fixed signs all like looking at her. So she could get a lot of attention, or she could be seen as like a lot of people's victories. And I feel like it put this masculine on defense. It put him on edge, envy and confusion. So he maybe felt envious, which made him confused, or he acted out of character or something because he felt small and he felt bashful, and, you know, or something like went on in regards of that. But there's a blockage here as well of the heart, because Mercury is not the moon. So in Vedic astrology, Mercury rules over the mind, but it rules over like basically the left brain, like the pattern finding mind. That's not the same thing as the total moon, where you're incorporating the emotional energy. And I think this comes from having been in ABUSIVE relationships. For some, it's a father energy, but or it's a grandfather energy, but it's authority. It's like an old energy. I don't know. Whatever has like gotten this grip. So this masculine has blocked himself off at the heart, and he thinks that that's intelligent, and it causes him to feel confused because there's a kind of intelligence that comes through the emotions. So, and actually, okay, so the way that they're showing this to me, this is interesting, is I'm seeing Venus, like his Venus in the 12th house, but it's like right behind the ascendant. So if you don't speak astrology, the ascendant is like, that's the first point in your chart. That's what people see when they first meet you, is your ascendant. That's how you come across to the world. And it can be confusing for people because a lot of times you'll have a sign span the ascendant. But when you have the Venus, I'm hearing Venus. When you have Venus, which is such a personal planet, right? And it looks like it's right there on the ascendant, but it's on the 12th house side of things. It's not actually in the first house. Well, he's blind to that. Even though it's like right by his ascendant, he's blind to that. He can't see it. It's actually very, very far away. So I feel like that's where this feminine, who's very heart-centered, he's very mind-centered, she's very heart-centered, she feels a connection to him. She feels that Venus energy, and she can kind of clearly see, it's very magician high priestess, to be honest. So she senses that Venus energy that's just right there, but then she's confused by his actions that are fueled by envy, jealousy, and confusion. And she doesn't realize that he doesn't see the Venus energy. He knows that there's something different. He can pick up on some kind of pattern, but all he sees is that there's a lot of interest around her. He feels insecure. He hasn't connected with his own power. And so it causes him to create these like fantasies in his mind. And maybe this is you as well, like of just fears and illusions and whatever, and then actually manifest them into being. And I'm telling you, this man can manifest some doozies into being. Okay. Which is why you're not safe there. If he can't get a handle on this. So he's like kind of blocked off at his heart. So his challenge to see through this Leviathan energy, what he needs to incorporate karmically, this is also karmic, right? Is to connect with that heart space energy, to actually see through the lens of the heart. Because if he sees her through the lens of the heart, he's going to see that he has no reason to feel jealous, because there's just a connection between the two of them. Something that like cannot be replicated, something that she's not interested in, you know, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever, you know, like with the actual soulmate kind of energy, that she wants the perfect fit for her. And if he can just voice the heart, because the magician is language, is communication, and it's learning languages, learning the language of nature, learning the language of emotions, learning the language of heart, like the pattern recognition, which is not always. Mercury is communication, right? But it's pattern recognition. The way that we communicate is not always in this kind of straightforward manner. It's like inferring certain things, or and I just heard none of it's safe. None of it's safe. So if you're looking to try to stay safe and like, well, I have to protect and defend my ego, but still try to make a move over here, you're trying to keep yourself safe, and there's no way to get around it where you don't risk something, right? So that's the one thing here. So let's go over to the feminine side of things really quick. Let me just take a drink of my tea. So this feminine is showing up as the Four of Wands, which is happy partnership, right? But the Four of Wands, this isn't based on, this is very soulful energy to me. It's right. It's Bharani Nakshatra, which is right in the middle of Aries. And Aries is such an auspicious sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's kind of one of the the fire energies, the grand fire trine energies. It's very auspicious. The fire signs in astrology are very, very auspicious, and especially in Vedic astrology. But yeah, very, very auspicious energy. And Bharani is right there in the middle of it. And Bharani, it is this happy partnership, happy marriage, happy union. And I feel like that's what she feels like she senses, because this is a very heart-centered person. But her challenge, if she's to connect with the sword of truth in the situation, and to a certain extent keep herself safe here from all of his crazy manifestations that is just going to be occurring here until he gets his power under control, is she's got to connect with the mind. She actually has to be connecting with the Mercury energy, the pattern recognition energy, because there's a difference between a high priestess and someone who is Delulu, okay? You know that, and I know that. You've seen that, and I've seen that, right? So a real high priestess is not absent. It's moon energy. Moon is the total mind, which includes Mercury. Mercury is often the child. Moon is often the mother, right? So it includes that. And so when you have an intuition, if the world around you is not reflecting that truth back at you, it's not real, right? It's a fantasy or it's a delusion. And so her challenge is, okay, well, I feel this in my heart about you, that you are my Venus and that you are my partner, that there's something special between us. But then you've gone and done that. And that is not the action of love. That's not, I'm not even safe over there. Like, so you cannot be ignoring that, because how can you trust your intuition if you are presented with something totally opposite? So I do think this is like getting the intuition up and running, but it's not falling prey to delusion. It's sharpening those skills. You cannot just kind of like give over to that, you know, so you have to recognize that, because truly it's not safe if he's not in control of his this wild, fantastical, like, I'm jealous and I'm insecure, and so therefore I just make up these crazy bullshit stories and I believe them wholeheartedly, and I don't have a direct conversation with you, and then I involve with karmics and I'm trying to make you jealous, and now all this is a nightmare hellscape. Like, you're not safe. And Bharani energy, the Shakti power of that feminine power, the witchy power, right, is it carries things away. And so I feel like you need to kind of be carrying yourself away, you know, and kind of like moving on. Now, the other interesting thing here about Bharani, okay, Bharani is often very attractive, but not in a conventional way. You might not fit the beauty standard. And so that is where you could be confused as to why people have an interest in you or why they're being nice to you. As my husband has taught me, nice always wants something. True goodness doesn't always want something, because you can be good and a little bit gruff and a little bit standoffish, but you're like a good person. It's just sometimes, you know, before you had your coffee, or like sometimes you want to go on a walk and be left the hell alone. Like, it doesn't make you a bad person just because you're not always personable and open and, you know, available. But nice always wants something. Nice always has an agenda. So I feel like you could have been confused about that in the past, because you could have been thinking to yourself, well, I don't fit, like, you know, oh, well, I don't, whoa. This is very common in the female story, the female coming of age story, that's very connected to Ashleisha Nakshatra, at the end of Cancer, I just bit my tongue, Cancer, at the end of Cancer, and that's a Mercury ruled nakshatra as well, Mercury and Moon kind of combining, but and I feel like that's this other person. Actually, now we're starting to bring in this third party energy, which I kind of want to get to here in just a second, because the feminine is always dual. There's like a dual kind of quality to the feminine, so I want to put that to the side there. But Ashleisha Nakshatra is connected to a snake as well, connected to magical occult abilities as well, and it's also the very, very young girl who doesn't really realize the power that she has over men, because her body is changing and she's always been related to as a child. And then all of a sudden people start to change the way that they interact with her. And she's her. So she's always just been her. And she doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't understand that, which is why it's so nefarious. All of the gross, nasty, bullshit things that decrepit men say in our society. Oh, she knew what she was doing, or she wanted it, or no, she effing doesn't. She really doesn't, because she's only ever been her. She's only ever seen the world through her eyes. So she used to be 4, and then she just was 5, and then she was 6, and then she was 7. And so she came from this place of innocence until and that's where they project their nasty lust energy all over you, and then they try to say that it comes from you. So I feel like there's this energy of people around you that are looking at you, and so some of those people are going to try to make a pass at you, especially if this man is off doing things he should not be doing, making his energy very confusing to you, and you are having to deal with that. So I'm hearing between you and this masculine, there's a conversation that's going on here where it says, well, I was envious And so that's why I did this crazy fucked up thing. Oh, well, because you did that crazy fucked up thing, I was confused. And that's why I did what I did. That's what this boils down to. But I feel like it's got like the two of you just like pointing, like looking at each other like, ugh, you know, instead of being able to kind of take up the sword of truth and look at what's actually kind of going on. Because you felt it in your heart for him, but he wasn't behaving in a way that was safe. And so you had to protect yourself and you had to carry yourself away. And, or you will have to, if he doesn't get it together. Because remember, I'm thinking back to that last week where it's like he's got 3 chances because this is like your soulmate, and because God loves everybody, God loves all, you know, and God wants this to work out, and it would work out for you the best too, that he's not doing this to you as well. So that's a part of it. Now I want to get into this third party situation, and I want, because he's manifesting, okay, and he's manifesting envy. He's courting envy. You don't do that. Because he wants to evoke jealousy. And for him, that feels like taking his power back. To a small-minded person, that feels like taking your power back. Instead of being controlled by my jealousy, I want to evoke it in you. So he feels powerful in doing that. When the real power is to just triumph over it and deal with what you're dealing with. So now that's going to, they think that that's victory card, 6 of Wands. They think that that's like triumphant. And so I feel like they were almost in a weird way, that manifesting energy, but I'm hearing they were almost praying to like get back at you or to get even, or these other people, because there's other people that are involved. Like, I want to make everybody jealous. I want to make everybody envious. So your wish is my command. And that's where this karmic comes in, the spirit of envy and the spirit of Leviathan. Like, this is somebody who's very envious in and of themselves, and they're very confused, and they will have that effect on the wrong people. It'll make the wrong people envious, but it'll make this man's soulmates confused, because the soulmates, including this feminine, and I'm talking about like friends and like other people that we all need a community. So the people that this man should be around are like, I'm really confused. Because like, and this is where it's on a collective level too. It's like, when you decided to go keep up with the Kardashians, my soul remembers you from past lives. Like, do you remember when I used to make you like the mud pie, and then you pretend to eat it, and then you'd shove it in my face, and then we'd run inside and scare your mom? Like, remember we played that game, and that was like really simple and fun? And like, I don't even know who you are anymore, because now all of a sudden you're like about this, and you're with this kind of person, and it's just like confusing me. And confusion and envy. So I was confused. So that's why I did this, and I moved away. And this person's like, well, I don't understand why you're moving away. Like, don't you see that we're like copacetic? And it's like, well, I thought I felt that. But then here you are keeping up with the Kardashians and the Joneses. And I understand that you think you can be in the middle of all that and still maintain yourself. But I don't want to be around it. You do understand that. It feels bad. But again, blocked up at the heart. He doesn't understand that it feels bad. And it feels bad to anybody worth being around for him. So, and he's like, well, I want you to feel jealous of me because that's the only way that I can find a sense of worth. So he's driving away all of his soulmates. And he's staying in that, it's that abusive dynamic, right? That he's that Anurata energy, and he's got to build his strength. He's got to get out of it. And I feel like it's this cycle where he's always kind of manifesting in this spirit of Leviathan, this spirit of envy, this spirit of jealousy. And I feel like this third party energy, whatever it is, because I feel like it could actually be a lot of things, like a whole host of things, because it's on that collective level. Because it could have been that he was jealous about you, but then that's switched over to like, well, I'm going to succeed in all of the Kardashian kind of ways, and that'll show you. And you're like, that didn't show me. I want nothing to do with that. And I want nothing to do with you and your little dog too. Like, you know, and so then you're just like, I got to save myself. Every man for themselves. Like, you know, like, I'm not getting sucked into that bullshit, you know? And so you've had to get away from it. And you did, because I'm telling you, this man has manifestation capability, and he's going to pull in some doozies. And these people are going to see very clearly, there's no getting around the fact that there's a connection between soulmates. And they're going to feel threatened by his natural emotion for you. And this is also like on a friend level as well. And they're going to target you. You have to get out of there. So that brings me back to the Four of Wands. Because like I said, so the Four of Wands is somebody who's very attractive, but it's in that Bharani kind of way. There's just something about you. It's a soul power. And remember the Titans. I got that soul power. Left side, strong side, right? Feminine side. So that it's just, and it's a masculine energy. The masculine energy in Bharani is actually very feminine. It's actually very nurturing, and it's very caring. And so you could have that kind of energy, or there's a you get attention for that. Like, I feel like that's something that's very healthy, where it's like you're very strong and you're very matter of fact and very action oriented, but you're also very like nurturing. That could be something here. Like, that's the true feminine energy. The other side of Bharani, okay, and I'm using this as a metaphor. This comes down from Vedic astrology. The other side of Bharani is it is a wrathful, disgruntled S worker. Okay. And I feel like that's where this third party comes in. And I'm not saying that's what they actually are in this life. I'm just saying he could have been trying to make his divine feminine jealous. And so he slept with her. And I'm seeing, and she feels that. She feels that she wanted the Four of Wands, either like overall in her life. So he's messing with her. He's playing with her heart and her time. He's using her as an object and as a prop to try to make you jealous, or vice versa. Because I don't know where you fall in this, right? And so she's pissed. And she's angry at him. And that is what's allowing that spirit of Leviathan. This is very karmic, because he's done this to her in past lives too. And there could be more than one here as well. And this person could have actually been an S worker like in past lives. But again, they wanted that. And also Bharani is the yoni. And it rules over birth and death, because Yama also like, Yama is like rules over death and is like present in Bharani as well, because it's that like birth, death kind of energy that happens. And so could have like, I just heard like violently scorned. This is like a just blind, rageful, scornful energy coming off of this person that would just like get pregnant or something. Like, see, like now I got the power. I got the power, because they're driven by envy. They want, and this could be on a collective level as well, because I feel like with this third party, they were so used in past lives by this man. Like, there's definitely karma that's going on, because it's like she gets to do this because he has not treated her kindly or well. And because he shouldn't involve her. Like, he should not, like, did you send for me? I'm hearing that from Aladdin. Did you wake me up? Did you bring me here? And all of a sudden you're walking out on me? I don't think so. You getting your wishes, sit down. Like, oh, you didn't just call me in here. And then you can't just get rid of me. You can't just use me and get rid of me. It's like rage. Okay. And he's probably brought out rage in both of these feminine energies, because it's all this like worst fear, like kind of energy. But her worst fear as well, because it's Scorpio. Scorpio rules over other people's money. It rules over status. So hers could be like being destitute or something. So I don't know. There was this energy kind of between them in past lives. And so she is actually confused and envious as well. That's like the theme here. It's like all twisting everything out, but it's because she wants a certain place in society. And, you know, the age of Pisces, and probably other ages, but definitely the age of Pisces, was very patriarchal. You know, you had to have a man in order to like, and so he could have made it seem like that's what was happening, and then it wasn't. And that is everything. That's all of a sudden you can't feed your kids. You can't have a job. It's everything in a patriarchal age. So it's deeply, deeply upsetting, but it's the confusion and envy on her end, because I feel like she's always been like chasing after either status, or it could just be safety and security at all, like in past lives, that she never asked herself. She never got to ask herself, who am I? What do I want? And that's where it's like, she doesn't actually have to be envious of him and his feelings for you, because she's going to have interloped here. And I think she might well have something on a status level that it's the Kardashians, you know, it's like, it's something like that. And it's like, well, that's power, right? So why don't I have power over you? Because she's never going to, there's a soul connection between him and a group, him and a family, him and a divine feminine. Like, there's some kind of soul connection she doesn't understand. And it's not power, but she feels then confused and envious. And so that's why she acted out. And that's why she did whatever she did, which might involve some kind of pregnancy or something. And it's because she was envious. But it's like the confusion. It's like, if you knew who you really were, you don't even want this dusty, crusty man or anything to do with this. Like, you actually your dream is actually to go this and that. And she can't see that because society in that patriarchal era put that middleman. I'm always talking about the middleman, right? The middleman of, well, if I had status and money, then I would be happy. Then I would get all my base needs met. And to someone who's starving, right? It's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't have your safety security needs met. You don't have your love belonging needs. Like, yeah, those are like the base deficiency needs. You can't think about anything else if you're hungry. You can't. So it's all very natural that's going on here, but it's the spirit of Leviathan. And I'm hearing, please understand that it is your freedom on the other side of this that is being offered, regardless of where you stand in this circle, whether you were used to make somebody jealous because this man could see, and he got very strategic and he wasn't seeing with his heart, because it's not just his divine feminine that he's not seeing with his heart. It's whoever he's trying to use and grab as a prop. And this is reminding me of, I saw this short the other day, made me bust a rib. But this woman, they were playing the game where like you draw the card and you put the card on your forehead and you can't see it, but everybody else is giving you clues and you have to try to guess what it is. So hers, the guy said, well, you're like an object, but you're also a living thing. And she goes, oh my God, am I a woman? And I feel like that's what he's using. He's seeing like women as objects, and he's using them to block his heart and to just not admit that he was jealous and he fucked up, and that he actually has a deep emotion, because this man's power is his devotion. I think to God, really. But it's heart energy. I got that soul power, left side, strong side. It's that. And the left side's the feminine side of the body. I keep saying that and then not really just explaining, but the left side of the body is the feminine side of the body. And all of the left side of the body, you've got all of the power rests in the left side of the body, like with your digestive system and everything. It just crunches everything down, and then it sends it to the right side of the body. That's more that Virgo, like kind of fine tuning sort of energy. So it's about connecting with like the feminine actually is where the strength comes from. And masculine energy is actually very skinny and tall. But when you see even like a strong man, that breadth dimension, the feminine rules over the width dimension. So when you see a man that's got like those broad shoulders, that's feminine qualities in a man. Don't get that twisted. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying you recognize that as strong. You recognize that as manly, because it's strong to be balanced. So he needs to understand that he needs to lean into that feminine side more, and that he needs to unlock his heart. And that's actually the key to devotion. And that's what's going to stop injecting confusion and envy, and drawing that out, because that's where you guys are just like talking past each other. And even this third party is kind of like wrapped up in it. And I feel like she's chasing after something here that she shouldn't even be chasing after. And honestly, she doesn't even want to be chasing after it. She's just so pissed at him. And she might be pissed at you because she's like, well, I don't understand. What does she have that I don't have? And she could have tried to like, quote unquote, take your place. And I don't know. I think I'm putting this in like romantic terms, because like that romantic love triangle is something we can all relate to, but this could even be like a sibling relationship or something. And so that soul thinks it's like leave no stone unturned. And Leviathan doesn't want them to, because it's just feeding off of that energy of like, I don't feel like I'm enough and I'm insecure and like everything. So it's like leave no stone unturned, because it's like, well, if I could just have what you have, then I would be exactly like you. No, the fuck not, because the power comes from the soul. And going through that kind of tumble dryer. And that's what you're going through right now. You're going through the tumble dryer of awakening, where you're bumping up against everything, but it's drying out finally. It's drying out. And so that's where I want to, let me just make sure. Okay, no, actually, I'm like doing pretty good here. Thank you to the makers of Dayquil. Okay, so that's what like is leading me to like the kind of the pinnacle of like, okay, so what? Like what is this like kind of teaching us? So, so the first thing is to know, like, what can you do about this, right? And how can you kind of see your way through this storm? Because I feel like this is essentially the Bermuda Triangle, and triangle is another symbol. Triangle is a symbol of the mind, and the mind, as Ramana Maharshi says, is an obstacle to liberation. So getting stuck in the mind is like kind of like, I'm hearing like getting stuck in the Bermuda Triangle, and like the Bermuda Triangle is where is it? It's in the ocean. I mean, is it in the Gulf? See, I don't even know where it is. That's how confusing it is. I used to know where it is. We all did, because we heard the stories about it, But it's this confusion, the shipwrecks, right? Bermuda Triangle, the triangle of the mind. And also think about the victim, rescuer, persecutor. Thank you to Kat over at Weird is the New Black. She introduced that concept to me in a reading, and I just never let go of it because it was just so pertinent. But yeah, the rescuer, victim, persecutor, psychological triangle. There's so much information on that. Highly recommend just brushing up on that from time to time. Because it's like once you're on that triangle of like, and that's how the mind is trying to figure this out. Okay, well, who's the rescuer? Who's the victim? And who is the persecutor? And it's like, everybody. Just everybody, okay? When Leviathan is involved, it's just everybody. Everybody is a victim, and everybody's persecuting everybody, and everybody's trying to rescue everybody, because it's just all elbows and knees in here. It's like, and nobody's trying to do that, but it's like, that's the sage. That's what they came here for, to sit, to just center your energy, and when in doubt, do nothing. Okay, so the thing that you're learning in this is first to know that confusion and envy are a part of this dance. Know that they're there. Know that they're variables that are taking hold here in this particular situation. Know that permaculture tenet, when in doubt, do nothing. The anxiety that we all have, it's like, makes you think that you have to take some kind of action. But what if you don't? Just what if you didn't? What if you just sat back and you just connected with that solar plexus chakra? What if you had a peach and a little glass of tea and you just chilled instead? Because the mind, the ego, likes to think that it knows everything. But it's honestly a very anxious little thing, and it's always trying to defend itself. And that's that rescuer, victim, persecutor kind of like mentality, right? So now is not the time for big moves. Now is not the time for certainty and decisions. And we don't like that, do we? And that's not a me problem, okay? Or like any other tarot reader or anywhere that you would go, right? And I know that you know this, but it's like sometimes now is just not the time for certainty. Nothing is wrong. It's just that now's not the time for certainty because you're going through a process, and sometimes you just have to call that, okay, well, I really like to be certain. Excuse me, heavens. I really like to be certain. That would be cool. And it's like, okay, we'll try to get you there, but it's a process. And like I said, you're in that tumble dryer. So it's just recognizing like you are here, you're on your way to clarity and certainty, but you just might not be there just yet. So now is the time for processing, to be in process. And we talk about that a lot in the readings too, that like process-oriented mindset versus a fixed-oriented mindset. And I'm going to tell you a little something as well. If you have a fixed-oriented mindset, which is, this is the way that I'm hearing from Aladdin again, you are born a street rat, you will die a street rat, and only your fleas will mourn you. Like, if you think, oh, I was just born this way, so I'm always just going to be this one thing. You don't have a process-oriented mindset. But everything in life changes, including you. That's something that you can take hold of. You can take power over and actually do that. But if you have a fixed-oriented mindset about damn near anything, you're wrong. You're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong a lot. A broken clock is right twice a day. But honey, that's the only time that it's right. And it's like based on chance. So just know that like everything is kind of always changing around you. So if everything's always changing around you, the goal of life must be to find that like that security here. Like, okay, everything's changing around me. How do I get comfortable in that? And, have you ever seen a tree whipping around in a hurricane? Like, part of that is flexibility, And I'm hearing that quote from Practical Magic, where Nicole Kidman's character, she's like obsessed with love. She like always gets drawn into like these love situations. And her little niece is like, I can't wait to fall in love. And she was like, let me tell you something about love. Have you ever closed your eyes and spun in a circle really, 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 really fast and you fall down? She's like, so if you don't keep your eyes fixed on something, you're gonna fall, and you don't even realize what you're doing to the people around you. You don't even realize that you're falling, right? So it's about learning how to operate the vessel that is you in this crazy thing that we call life, right? So now is the time to try things on, get still, quiet the mind, get to know your mind. So even in the tarot readings, like it might actually just be bringing up for some of you sometimes, your biggest fear or something. And it's important for you to maybe try that on, swish it around in your mouth. You can do that without saying, this is the truth with a capital T. Are there elements of this? This is the bigger process that is more important to spirit. Your ego wants certainty. It thinks it needs certainty. Spirit knows that you don't need certainty. Spirit knows you need something else. Spirit knows that you need to learn how to be human. Spirit knows that you are an integrated system and you are getting to learn how to be your integrated system. So have a little fun with the process, right? But get to know the mind, because the mind can be an obstacle to liberation. And I always like to say with the mind that if you've ever taken your jar in to get the dried goods, you have to get it weighed on the way in. And they put the little sticker on the lid so that they can subtract it from the way out. So they know exactly how many of beans or rice or whatever you got. That's like the mind. You have to know what the mind is, the Bermuda Triangle, so that you can subtract it from what's actually factually going on. And you have to know what it is so you know how to kind of navigate around it. Okay, if I don't just ask you what you meant by that statement, then I'm just going to run away with myself. And then I'm going to be in a shitstorm of my own making, kind of thing. So, and then the second thing, which I already mentioned, is just to be prayed, pray to be shown the way out. And I just heard it's not an accident in these mythological stories that when they're in the Bermuda Triangle, when they're tying themselves to the mast, they're praying. It's not a cute sentiment. Oh my gosh. And I saw this other short because I've been sick, so I've been in bed and I just been watching like a bunch of shorts. And it was these two guys, and they got sucked up in a tornado. They were in their car and they were storm chasers. They were actually trying to chase the storm. So they had like their camera equipment and stuff going, and they're screaming at each other. They're like, okay, where is it? Because sometimes tornadoes get wrapped in rain and you can't see like where they are. And they're like, where is it? Where is it? So all of a sudden you hear like the car like just get sucked up in the tornado, and it's like all like going round and round. And this man is screaming at the top of his lungs for Jesus. Like he's just like, Jesus, save me, Jesus. Like, and whenever like people say that, even like atheists and stuff, like when you are just like in it, you just start crying out for God in whatever way, like, how. And sometimes like that's like what people need to just like shake themselves and like to reacquaint them with the divine. But anyways, they were fine. The tornado put them down, and they got out of the car, and that car was smashed in the back. It wasn't smashed in the front where they were, but it was just crazy. But he like called out for Jesus in that moment too. Just, I don't know, gives me the goosebumps. But yeah, so just ask spirit to like help you pull like this out. Ask for God to cast Leviathan out of your life in whatever way. And whoever you relate to as God, whether it's God, Allah, Shiva, like whatever, like, yeah, I just got goosebumps. It's like, it's fine. Like God loves you. God is this like huge being that, just encompasses so many different things. Like call out for help, ask for that, and participate in the process, and know that that's what you're doing. And once you orient yourself that way, then you can actually better understand the truth of what's actually been going on here in this situation. And I go back to that conversation. Well, I was envious, so I did this. But it's this like well of emotion in that masculine. Remember, he's blocked off at the heart, and then his Venus is like, right behind the ascendant. So he can't even see it. So okay, so the last thing, and then I'm going to kind of like wrap this up, because then we get into like the other layer of, okay, so I was envious, and that envy caused me to feel confused, or I was confused and my confusion caused me to feel envy, or I was feeling envy, but I called it confusion, or I was feeling confusion and I called it envy. So it's like kind of pulling that apart, because I really get the sense of, again, Scorpio is like the depths that have not been primed, which is the importance of doing shadow work. Because if you can get in there and call it by name, okay, this is my big fear, this, and I've just stuffed it in there. I'm afraid I'm this way, or I'm afraid of that way. And I really feel like this man is afraid of being seen as soft, but it's crazy because it's like his biggest power is his devotional energy, devotional probably to God, or at least, everything is devotion to God. Like if you're devoted to this pen, like you're devoted to God, it's that like, and it's a very clarifying energy. And that's what I'm seeing, that scorpionic energy, all the water, I'm seeing it start to spin and finally drain out. Like once he finally connects to his devotional energy, because that's what it's going to be. And once he can call it by name, oh, I was just devoted to that person, or I was just devoted to that concept, or I was scared to show that maybe he's spiritual and he's scared to show that he's spiritual or something. It's like once he realizes that that's what it is, call it what it is, it's devotion. And, that was a woodpecker. Then that's going to cause like some kind of shift to occur in his being and in his situation. And all of a sudden everything is going to get less crazy and murky, because he's showing up as the magician in this. So he can stop being the dark magician, and he can stop being Leviathan. And somebody here's partnered with Leviathan. Which is just this very confusing, scornful person that they manifest into their life whenever they want to make somebody jealous. Yeah, so there's that. And I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah, and this divine feminine energy, 4 of Wands is a celebration, but it's also like a reconciliation. So I feel like certain things need to be carried away, and it's going to have you like reconciling with like yourself and your life and your soul path, because sometimes you have to protect yourself. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, and you can't just be the high priestess and have a feeling about something and then have that not reflected back to you in the world and then leap anyway. That's not intuition. That's delusion. That's not, and there's a difference here between spiritual bypassing, which is just going around something altogether, and actually transcending something. And you transcending something is not lying about the fact that he's been very probably harsh with you. He was trying to make you jealous. He was trying to hurt you. And it was because he couldn't be honest with you or something like that, so that's what I have. Tasha Blonde Diablo. Ugh, I'm late. Gotta play catch up. Master of Distortion. Great message, Jess. Thank you. Very mind opening. Good. I'm glad this came out. So stream of consciousness. And I actually, it always happens that like that on the lives for me. I just get so much clarity doing things this way. But yeah, he's a peckerhead for sure. Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that in so long. My dad always used to say that. Devotion, that's his greatest power. And it is power, yes. So that was the message. Oh, and oh, Tasha, thank you so much for the super chat. So excited to watch this. What a pleasant surprise. The last thing that I wanted to say was I kept channeling The Search by NF. You guys know I like my NF. And I printed out the lyrics, and I felt so nerdy when I was doing this. I was like, this, I feel like I'm officially old now. I printed out like a rap song, the lyrics, and I highlighted the page. Okay, so that's us as grannies. I'm like, well, NF says, honey, that, so I just highlighted a couple things that I wanted to read that I feel like kind of encapsulates this. So it's like, hey, Nate. His name's Nate. Hey, Nate, how's life? I don't know. It's all right. I've been dealing with some things like every human being and really didn't sleep much last night. I feel like that just is all of us all the time. And then there's another part here. And I set out, let me just put my lip gloss on really quick, girl. Because even though you're sick doesn't mean that you have to. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Let me just put this on real quick and I'll tell you. Sorry if I'm scattered because I don't feel good. But putting makeup on when you don't feel good, you know that feeling where it's like, we really put lipstick on a pig, honey. Like, ugh. Like, I know when I put my makeup on, I was like, oh, she looks like a human, but before that I was like, good Lord. Of course, I feel like I need to give a message now. So, okay, this part of this rap song, I have it as a goal for myself that I want to memorize this because I want to be able to say it at parties. Is this going to be me? I'm picturing that part in Mean Girls where she's like, Tina Fey is like, sometimes older people make jokes. And he's like, my Nana takes her wig off when she's drunk. And she's like, your Nana and I have that in common. I feel like that's going to be me. It's like this is my millennial granny. I'm trying to memorize rap verses to bring it up in conversation. Okay, but I haven't memorized it yet, so. This part is like, yeah, the sales can rise. Doesn't mean much, though, when your health declines. See, we've all got something that we've trapped inside that we try to suffocate, hoping it dies. Try to hold it on underwater, but it always survives. Then it comes up out of nowhere like an evil surprise. Then it hovers over you to tell you millions of lies. You don't relate to that. Must not be as crazy as I am. But, yeah, it's like, see, we've all got something that we've trapped inside that we try to suffocate, hoping it dies. Try to hold it underwater, but it always survives. And then it comes up out of nowhere like an evil surprise. Leviathan. Like, we try to push it underwater. And it's like this sea dragon, which, humans have always come up with mythologies of these, like, big dragon creatures that, like, live in the murky depths. That is so scorpionic. It's so scorpionic. It's so scorpionic. And so we ask God to, and maybe I literally felt that open up my heart. Like, we ask God to just come down here and slay Leviathan. The confusion and the haze, which again, I just feel like it's a metaphor for shadow work here as well. But anyway, so if you want to listen to that song, it's called The Search by NF. 1:11 p.m. over here. Nice. Just gonna be in an old folks home, some faraway day, spitting bars. You know it, girl. Although I would love for us all to have a monastery for us, and we can all live there together and take care of each other till our dying days. So maybe I'll be there, and we can help bring up the young ones into spiritual traditions, and that'd be really cool. And me and Alex can have dance-offs with our walkers. Anyways, I used to know Sugar Hill Gang Rappers Delight. Oh, nice. I'm planning on Costa Rica. Let's work on that. I really want that so bad. I'm trying to manifest it. Been thinking about the dragon a ton of late. The ultimate symbol of alchemy and healing. Yeah. And, the dragon and the snake both have those qualities of being like tempters and, the snake from Jungle Book, the trust in me. That's another thing that like I pick up on sometimes. And the dragon as well, because dragons are keepers of knowledge and treasures and things like that. So I want a homestead with a music building, everyone welcome, especially women with kids. Raising my girls crazy and spiritual. I'm up for that. Wheelchair races after lunch, LOL. Y'all's comedic timing is actually wonderful. Where would this monastery be? I don't know. I really don't have anything else in my mind other than I would love for it to just be a spiritual community where we all have like small but efficient houses, and we can have meals and I don't know, just be spiritual and live in community. Yeah. In the forest somewhere. All right. Well, that's what I have for you. And I'm going to compassion this one more time. Compassion, 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 compassion. That's the other thing is like compassion, trying to like, it's like with this masculine, if he's only going to live in the mind and if he's only going to present himself as mind and strategy, what? Then it's hard to have compassion because there's like, once you understand that there's deep emotion and stuff there and that's causing him to act out, like that actually brings out the softer side to you. That actually brings out your compassionate nature, and once he understands that he's acted an absolute ass and that you're trying to protect yourself and that's why you did what you did is because you were confused, and of course you were confused, or however this dance goes between you, it's like then you can understand, you can stop being enemies and letting Leviathan win and and stop pointing the finger and instead be like, whoa, this is a lot. Janae. Just finally starting a cult.
Guys, this is the best day ever.
Oh my gosh. Today's the day. Mark it on your calendars. Wednesday, October 16th. Was the day I finally did it. May I do it with you? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get off of here and take a nap. So, that's all I have in me. Thank you guys so much for being my people. And I'm going to leave it there. Bye, guys.